Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Welcome. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. We hear from federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who explains in more detail why he ripped up the coalition agreement with the Trudeau government. The Insurance Bureau of Canada says due to devastating weather events, including the Jasper wildfires, they've seen a record amount of claims. And with classes back at the University of Lethbridge, officials discuss challenges students face when it comes to housing.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh explained in more detail why he's cancelled the coalition deal with the Trudeau government. Speaking to reporters in Toronto, Singh says the Trudeau government seems to care more about the wealthy than the average middle-class Canadian. He also slammed Tory leader Poilievre Poilievre, who says he does not support the NDP's healthcare plan. Singh says he realizes, however, that tearing up the confidence deal with the Liberals could trigger an early election.
I've ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, and I know that means that an election has now become more likely. We are ready to fight an election whenever that happens. And when that election comes, the choice is going to be between Poilievre Poilievre and Conservative cuts, who want to literally destroy our healthcare system. Want to make it so that the only way you can get care is if you can afford to pay for it out of pocket. Or New Democrats, who want to fix our healthcare system, build it up so it is there for you and your loved ones when you need it. That is a choice in the next election.
And the next federal election is slated for October of 2025. Federal Conservative leader Poilievre Poilievre says now that the coalition agreement with the Liberals has been torn up by NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, he really needs to call a carbon tax election right away.
He is going to have to vote on whether he keeps Justin Trudeau's costly government in power or whether he triggers a carbon tax election so Canadians can elect a common sense government that axes the tax, builds the homes, fixes the budget, and stops the crime.
South of the border, U.S. Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance took to the stage in Arizona to slam Kamala Harris and her running mate, Tim Walz. Vance says Harris's past record of not getting things done for the American people speaks for itself.
But to look at the American people, even though she's reading off a teleprompter, and to say, on day one, we're going to make groceries and housing more affordable. On day one, Kamala Harris says this, we're going to tackle the American southern border. Kamala, day one was 3.5 years ago. What the hell have you been doing the whole time? I think what actually might happen based on his military service is he's going to bail out at the last minute but say he went anyway. I think that's the Tim Walz approach to the debate. Well, maybe the best thing, not the very best thing, but a very good thing that I could say about the next presidency of Donald J. Trump is that he's going to make sure that people like Liz Cheney are laughed out of the Oval Office instead of rewarded, because this is a person whose entire career has been about sending other people's children off to fight and die for her military conflicts and her ridiculous ideas that somehow we were going to turn Afghanistan, a country that doesn't even have running water in a lot of places, into a thriving liberal democracy.
You know, now this has to be the ultimate troll of the 2024 U.S. federal election. Almost the entire family of Kamala Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, just endorsed Donald Trump. The picture has gone viral on social media. Family members had T-shirts which read, "Nebraska waltzes for Trump." Also a sign reading, "Trump 2024, take America back." The U.S. federal election is slated for November 5th of this year. Police in Georgia say a 14-year-old has been charged as an adult in connection with Wednesday's shooting at a high school located just outside of Atlanta. 2 teachers and 2 students were killed, and 9 others were injured during the attack. Witnesses describe what they heard.
And I can just see him kind of turn to the side, like what would have been my right, and you just hear gunshots. There's about 10 to 15 of them at once back to back, and then everyone just kind of ducks to the floor. And we all kind of sporadically crawl. We don't really know which corner to go to, but we're all crawling to the floor. I'm pushing desks in front of like everybody that's against the wall, telling people like move desks in front of you, get low.
I was walking out to get water and I heard gunshots and I heard bullets going like by my head. So I ran back in class and I yelled like, "Hey, there's a shooter, like they're shooting out there." And so I locked the door and like I just got like towards the back of the class, and we cut the lights off, and we just waited.
And then I think 3 other shots went off, and then that's when I looked, and then everybody started looking around, and I heard people yelling. I heard this man yelling, you know, for someone to get down and put their hands in the air and stuff like that. Then it went quiet, more shots went off, and then I think maybe 20 minutes after that, police came in to clear out the room, and, you know, everybody put their hands up.
A narrow strip of sand dunes on the Gaza side of the border with Egypt has emerged as a major obstacle in talks aimed at ending the Israel-Hamas war and freeing scores of hostages. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel must maintain control over the Philadelphia border and corridor to prevent the terrorist group from beefing up its arsenal through a series of tunnels used for smuggling. Joe Fetterman from the Associated Press has more.
It's a strategic piece of land. It's not wide. It's only about 100 meters wide, but it's very strategic because Israel says that Hamas has used this area along the border to smuggle weapons into the Gaza Strip. The corridor has become perhaps the central issue in preventing a ceasefire at this stage. Israel moved into the area in May, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that Israel has to retain control of this entire border strip for an open-ended period. He is not willing to relinquish control. This is a major sticking point because Hamas is demanding a full withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza. Israel has found dozens of tunnels along this corridor, but Egypt says the tunnels were sealed up on its side long ago. It says it has stopped the smuggling for years now. It believes that Israel should pull away and they should find some sort of alternative arrangement to secure that border.
Vancouver Police Chief Adam Palmer held a news conference after a man was arrested for a pair of unprovoked stranger attacks. One man died as a result of an attack, and another had his hand severed in downtown Vancouver.
This morning, 2 very violent, serious attacks occurred in our city, resulting in the death of 1 innocent person and significant life-altering injuries to another. This marks our city's 9th homicide of 2024. Attacks like these shake our collective sense of comfort and safety, and I am grateful that a suspect was quickly taken into custody by our VPD officers. Vancouver is not dying, Vancouver is not dead, Vancouver is not unsafe. That's all hyperbole, and it's not actually factual. What I will say is that our crime numbers are way down, but I think that we have to realize that there's too many unwell people walking around in our streets. And there's a lot of people suffering from mental health, addiction issues, people that have severe criminal backgrounds or a combination of 2 or all 3 of those, and people that are a danger to society.
The Insurance Bureau of Canada says this year's Jasper wildfire and hailstorm, which hit Calgary, are among the weather events responsible for a record amount of claims. The Bureau says the industry is looking at around 228,000 claims. That's a 406% increase compared with the 20-year average. 2 other events that have driven claims this year include flooding in both Ontario and Quebec. In celebration of Alberta Culture Days this month, the province has given out $375,000 in grants to support 111 organizations in 48 communities. Government officials say the funding will help towns and cities around the province celebrate a wide range of cultures through art and storytelling. Last year, 215,000 Albertans attended Alberta Culture Days events. Officials say more than 59 communities hosted events to increase awareness and engagement in the arts and cultural life of their communities. Officials also say to mark this month, Albertans will have free access to provincially owned museums, historic sites, and archives on the weekend of September the 28th and 29th. Alberta's Arts, Culture and Status of Women Minister Tanya Furr announced that the province will be helping more women break through barriers and gain employment through 3 unique scholarship opportunities.
Careers in science, technology, engineering, and math, also known as STEM, as well as cultural industries, are integral to our province. STEM-focused careers are in industries that push innovation, our economy, and our society forward. Alberta's cultural industries, such as film, television, music, books, and magazines, allow us to share our province's unique culture, perspectives, and stories on stages everywhere. As opportunities in these industries continue to grow, Alberta's government is ensuring students have a chance to have fulfilling careers in these sectors. As the school year starts again, I'm proud to share 3 scholarship opportunities Alberta's government offers to support post-secondary students entering these and other sectors. This includes the Women in STEM Scholarship, the Person's Case Scholarship, and a new scholarship we are announcing for the first time today, the Women in Technical and Applied Arts Scholarship.
Calgary city officials say Calgarians are using more water than the city can handle while a major pipe undergoes a second round of repairs. City officials say usage on Tuesday was 506 million litres. That is well above the 485 million litres officials say the city can manage without risking damage to pumps and other issues. Since the repairs began, 11 tickets carrying $3,000 fines have been dished out to both business owners and homeowners. Sask Power has set up a nuclear-focused subsidiary to investigate the process of bringing nuclear power to the province. Sask Nuclear will be owned by Sask Power and will share president and CEO along with board of directors. Officials say the subsidiary will allow the Crown utility to advance its small modular reactor program from a business and regulatory perspective. The province will not officially decide whether to proceed with the program until 2029. Well, it appears as though scammers are now using artificial intelligence in the grandparent scam. As BCN's Heidi Echevarria explains, Lethbridge police have now issued a warning that this particular type of fraud is on the rise here in our city.
Scammers don't just send messages pretending to be government officials. They also ask you to pay money. They pretending to be from a business, requesting additional information so that their supposed product or service can be delivered. But now there are also grandparent scammers who use artificial intelligence to target seniors. The CEO of Green Acres Foundation discusses what they do to prevent seniors from being affected.
At Green Acres, we try everything we can to try to educate as many seniors as we can. What we do here is we're very fortunate that we have a good relationship with the Lethbridge Police Service, and we have them in our sites giving education programs to our seniors. As well, we have posters up, and we give education in the resident newsletters. And just by actually talking, we have our site managers trying to explain to as many residents as possible the dangers, especially now with so many AI scams. So it's a constant education. But I tell you, one of the best ways that we can educate the residents is by having the residents talk about it.
For his part, Kevin Talbot, sergeant with the Economic Crime Unit at Lethbridge Police Service, explains how scammers are using AI and how it works.
What they'll do is they will do some research online through social media, web pages, and things of that nature, and they'll obtain an audio recording of an individual that could possibly have a grandparent. And then what they'll do is they'll mimic that individual, and then they'll research who their grandparent is, and then they'll contact them, and they'll have a conversation with them, but it'll sound just like their granddaughter or grandson. The thing with grandparent scams is that they come in waves. So the way scammers do this, they'll call from anywhere in the world to a victim. And then what they do is they'll put ads out there for so-called couriers to go and pick the money up for them. So the actual scammer never comes to the house to pick up the money. They hire someone locally, and they say, take a little bit of money for yourself and just go pick up this money and then deposit it into a bank account or a cryptocurrency exchange account. And that's how the money actually gets to the scammer. So in this case, where on Friday, where we arrested 2 individuals and charged them, that's exactly what they were doing. They responded to an ad on Kijiji to collect money from people they didn't know, and then to keep a little bit of the money that they collected for themselves as their payment. And then they sent the money off to the scammer somewhere in the world. Never assume that someone that's calling you is actually who they say they are. So the very first thing you should do is your own research and make sure that that's actually your grandson or granddaughter or someone that's representing them. And the way you do that is contact someone who's close to them as well, like a parent or a close friend or another relative of that nature, or call them directly. and find out if they actually are in trouble and if they need your help, and then go from there. But that's the very first step that you do before you send any money or provide any information or anything of that nature, is to actually verify that what they're saying is true.
For Bridge City News, I'm Heidi Echavarria.
Lethbridge police need our help in locating 3 suspects in connection with a commercial fire last week. Firefighters responded to the blaze last Sunday around 6 p.m. in the 1500 block of 2nd Avenue South. The fire was set to the exterior of the building along the back alley. Fortunately, there were no injuries, but damage to the building, however, was estimated at around $300,000. Surveillance images obtained from security cameras in the area showed 2 teenage males and 1 teenage female fleeing the scene. Now, if you can help police with their investigation and you can identify the teenagers, you're asked to call the LPS right away at 403-328-4444 or call Crime Stoppers. Dating as a teenager is pretty exciting. You meet new friends and even start romantic relationships. There are dangers, however, in the dating world. According to a recent study conducted by Stats Canada, there's a high percentage of dating violence against teenagers aged 15 to 17 here in Canada. The research indicates that emotional violence is the most common when teens are dating. Christine Cassie, CEO with Chinook Sexual Assault Center in Lethbridge, says teenagers can also fall victim to sexual assault.
Are actually at far more significant risk for things like sexual assault, and so for violence within dating. We know that with sexual assault, it tends to be more from acquaintances and people that you know than what it is from strangers, which is typically what we see in the media. So this is certainly of a concern. We know that at that age range that kids are having a little bit more freedom from their parents, from their family home, that they're out exploring with other friends, going out with friends, starting to date and the rest of it, maybe taking some other risks like some drinking perhaps as they're getting older and things like this as well. So again, that increases some risk around dating and relationships. We do see where those boundaries are crossed and where sexual assaults are happening, or where young people are being feeling pressured to go into doing some sexual acts that they really aren't comfortable in doing, and feeling unable to be able to say no to those acts. I really think violence during dating has been there since dating began. We know that domestic violence has not gone down over the ages, and yes, it's been exacerbated by social media. I think it's made it worse because of that access and because there's so many things that are unknown. A lot of what we need to do is to change some of the ways on how we're talking about the issue. So doing reports like this are really important for us to actually call attention to it, reminding all of us of what our responsibilities are with young people as they're growing and developing, about how we model and how we create those safe spaces for healthy relationships.
According to Stats Canada, around 45% of teenagers aged 15 to 17 experience dating violence. Emotional abuse was the most common form of violence, followed by physical violence and sexual violence. You know, with classes back in session at Lethbridge post-secondary schools, the challenge for many students lies in finding affordable housing or accommodations. As the City of Lethbridge continues to attract more students and permanent residents, costs continue to rise, but options continue to shrink. BCN's Landon Hickok has that story.
Although classes commenced on Tuesday for most students at the University of Lethbridge, many students arrived early throughout the long weekend to settle into their new student accommodations. And for many of these students moving out for the first time, the apparent challenges such as availability and costs could stick out like a sore thumb throughout the whole term. The university's housing services explained elements that led to another increase in their housing costs.
The way we work our pricing is that we look at the market a year out. So we are actually a year behind on the way our pricing works, which means we're not competitive to what's going on off campus. So we are significantly cheaper than some units off campus on the west side, which is a wild situation for us because we've always been more expensive because of the location. We have furnished units, all of the accessibility or necessities and needs that the students have access to, and resources like security being there 24/7. So that's a little scary for us to see off campus.
Many students have since opted to remain living at their parents if they live close enough. Unfortunately for those coming in from further out, the rental market in Lethbridge has been proven to be scarce on top of the university's current availability.
This year we are completely full, so we do have a wait list for our continuing student demographic, which is those that are returning after their first year. And we haven't seen that big of a wait list since COVID, actually. So, yeah, it is kind of crazy out there in terms of housing.
According to a Rentals.ca and Urban Nation study over the summer, rental prices have boomed in Lethbridge 20% in just the past year. At the university, a one-bedroom townhome costs $6,324 per term, which averages out to $1,581 a month. For a four-bedroom townhome or apartment, 4 students living together will still need to pay just over an average of $1,000 per month.
I don't know the exact numbers, but this past year we've had our summer student look at the cost of rental properties near and around the campus as part of that, piece for us to know where we're gauging our fees. And for the first time ever, we saw fees increase weekly, which we've never seen before.
For Bridge City News, I'm Landon Hickok.
Yeah, students went back to school, and it's hard to believe that fall is just around the corner. It was so sunny and hot again today across much of southwestern Alberta. Will the heat continue? A full look at the weather pictures coming up. Well, it was a beautiful day for a picnic in the park or maybe a walk through Nicholas Sharon Park here in Lethbridge. Sunny and warm. Tonight, it'll be mainly clear with a low near 9 degrees. Friday, sunny and hot again with a high expected near 31. And a beautiful weekend is shaping up so far as well. A clear sky and 31 degrees for Saturday. Sunshine and 29 degrees is on tap for Sunday. Monday, lots of sunshine again, but high expected near 30. Tuesday, a few clouds roll in and we should see a high of 28. Wednesday, more clouds developing with a high near 26. Now, the average high for this time of year is 21 degrees with an average low of 7. The record high was 35 degrees set way back in 1967, and the record low was a chilly 3 degrees in 1956. The sun rose at 6:54 and will set at 8:04 p.m. Let's see how Friday is looking across our home and native land now. It should be mainly sunny and 27 degrees in Victoria, lots of sunshine and 24 is on tap for Vancouver. A clear sky in both of our major cities here in Alberta. Calgary should see a high of 30, Edmonton even hotter at 32 degrees. Regina should be sunny as well and a high of 24 degrees. Sunshine at 28 is on tap for Saskatoon. A low pressure system continues in Winnipeg with clouds and showers and a high of only 19 degrees for tomorrow. Rain at 21 is on tap for Toronto on Friday. Mostly cloudy and a high of 26 degrees for our nation's capital in Ottawa. Lots of sunshine is on tap for Montreal with a high expected near 27. Over in Atlantic Canada, it'll be partly sunny in Fredericton with a high of 23. Clouds mixed with sunshine and a high of 22 for Halifax. Pretty much the same picture in Charlottetown. And in St. John's, expect lots of sunshine and a high near 25 degrees on Friday. Officials in British Columbia say they will stand up for forestry workers in the province following the closures of 2 sawmills. The shutdowns were triggered by new tariffs imposed by the United States, which Forestry Minister Bruce Ralston says are punitive and unfair. Canfor announced that it was shutting down the Plateau Mill in Vanderhoof, and its Fort St. John operation would also massively downgrade its annual production capacity. The company says the new tariffs are to blame, along with ongoing financial losses and weak lumber markets. The Ontario Convenience Store Association says the province's move to allow convenience stores to sell booze will increase foot traffic in stores. Officials say 4,200 licenses have been granted to convenience stores across Ontario to sell beer, cider, wine, and pre-mixed cocktails. This marks a major shift for the province as the government loosens its grip on the alcohol marketplace. 20% of beer, cider, and cocktails on display must be from small Ontario producers. 10% of wine, meanwhile, on display must be devoted to small Ontario wineries. Birch Hill Equity Partners has signed a deal to purchase Rexall Pharmacy Group and online retailer Well.ca. Rexall is currently owned by McKesson, operating around 400 pharmacies in Canada and employing around 8,000 people. Well.ca offers more than 40,000 health and wellness products online. Financial terms of the agreement were not immediately available. Those with variable rate mortgages could benefit from the latest decision by the Bank of Canada to cut its key interest rate. This week's cut to 4.25% prompted big commercial banks to lower their prime rates, which are used to set the rates charged for variable rate loans. Variable rate mortgages became popular after the Bank of Canada cut interest rates to almost zero in 2020. When the central bank began rapidly raising rates 2 years ago, rates soared and variable rates weren't quite as popular anymore. The governor of the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, says more rate cuts could be forthcoming. Now, here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 52 points on the day to finish at 22,988. The Dow was down 219 to 40,755. The S&P 500 was down 16 points to 5503, and the Nasdaq was up 43 points to finish at 17,127. West Texas Intermediate oil was up $1.54 to $69.32 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 12 cents to $2.26 US. Gold was up $22.59 to $25.1667 US an ounce, and silver was up 55 cents to $28.82 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $7.54 per bushel. Barley is at $5.88. Canola is at $13.25, and corn is at $7.32 per bushel. Live cattle October contract was down $1.30 to $183.15. Feeder cattle were down $2.50 to $237.13. Lean hogs October contract was up 90 cents to 87.33, and the Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 74.10 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, the Insurance Bureau of Canada says this year's Jasper wildfire and hailstorm, which hit Calgary, are among the weather events responsible for a record amount of claims. The Bureau says the industry is looking at around 228,000 claims. That's a 406% increase compared with the 20-year average. Two other events that have driven claims this year include flooding in Ontario and Quebec. Coming up, an interview with Juno nominee Kalita Haverland. She's a country music and gospel singer-songwriter who just wrote a book about her life called Reason to Sing. You won't want to miss this insightful and informative interview coming up shortly. When you see news happening in your community, make sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. Also visit our website anytime to check out a number of stories and interviews. Kalita Haverland is a name many of you will probably recognize. She's a Canadian singer and songwriter who achieved quite a bit of success in the 80s and 90s and beyond. She was a Juno Award nominee for Best Country Female Artist. She also nominated for a Juno for Contemporary Christian and Gospel Album of the Year. Kalita is also a fellow believer who just released her memoirs discussing her musical journey along with her many adventures. And the book is called Reason to Sing. And Kalita joins us now from Oakville, Ontario. Kalita, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you, Hal. It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Now, you and your hubby Gord and your son and your puppy, you all actually moved to Mexico, but you're just, in Canada for a visit right now?
Well, yes, we did. We moved a few years ago, and I'm in Canada right now. I've been marketing and promoting and getting ready to release my book. So
wonderful. Now, even though you're in Southern Ontario right now, you actually have quite a bit of history here in Southern Alberta. Can you explain?
I certainly do. I was actually born in Lethbridge. And yeah, my parents were farmers and ranchers in the Carmen Gay and Claresholm area. So I grew up, my grandparents actually sold the land where the college is in Lethbridge on the coulee there. So I have fond memories of hanging out in the coulees as a young girl. And then after we were in Claresholm, then we moved to Calgary, and that's where I did all my schooling.
So did the wind from Lethbridge kind of blow you out of the town? Like, what happened?
Yes, the wind did. I know. I think that's never changed, has it?
Yeah, that's right. Now, you actually changed gears from country music into Christian music. How much did your faith really play a major role there?
Well, it played everything. I mean, I always had dreams of, being a star, music, movies, whatever. And I had quite a successful run in country music. But my life took a dramatic change after an automobile accident where I walked away unscathed. And it was really an implosion of everything in my life. I had been in a marriage that wasn't good. I had dealt with a lot of abuse and a lot of tragedy and loss in my personal life. And I just came to the end of myself, had done a lot of mask wearing, and it was time to take them off. And God welcomed me with his arms. And ever since then, I've been on a new path.
Well, let's talk about your journey coming to know Christ as your Lord and Savior.
Well, actually, it first happened when I was 14. My father had passed away on our farm in the Claresholm area, and my mother now found herself with terminal breast cancer. And so I was at a youth event one night and made a decision to take the step of receiving Christ. And that was such a beautiful thing to happen in those years of such loss and trauma in my family. And then I came to Toronto University and actually walked away from God for many years, my whole entire marriage, my first marriage, and decided to take my life into my own hands, which wasn't a good idea. So God had his hand on me from a very early age. Even before that youth event that I went to, I was actually singing, writing a song after my father had passed away, and he actually took his life. So it was a very traumatic time for us. And I can remember it still to this day. I was sitting down at the piano, just grieving my father and the loss that our family experienced, and so many questions as an 11-year-old girl. And that's when I wrote my first song. And I really felt that there was something very supernatural that took place in my life that day, the gift of music that was given to me. And I know that today to be a gift from God.
Sounds like quite the journey, a lot of adventures, some pain, some sorrow, and some joy at the same time. Let's talk about your book, Reason to Sing, your memoirs. What really inspired you to write it? Was that whole journey in your life?
Yes. Actually, I've been, once I made the transition into the Christian music scene, I really started being invited into prisons, women's groups, churches, conferences. I've done it all. And as God would have it, he wanted me to share my story. And so as I began to share my story and the songs that were written that encompassed the story, I realized that there was a much greater purpose for my life, and that stories are so important. And when we can share openly and vulnerably, it's incredible how we can touch other people's lives and really let people know that they aren't alone in their own trauma and loss. And so I've been doing that for many years, and it just was an evolution to write the book and put it finally down on paper and to share it with more people. So it's been a long time in the works. I've probably been working on it for at least 20 years. But I think a lot of people have written books during COVID, and that's when I started really pulling all the pieces together and focusing on it.
Now, your book, Reason to Sing, delves into some deep personal and challenging experiences, Kalita. Why did you decide to open up and share so much of yourself and bare your soul to the world?
Well, I hid for so long. I hid behind many personas and masks. And one of the reasons, well, two reasons, is guilt and shame. And so when you can finally face your truth and the things that you've been through in your life, and you find freedom and you find healing, you want to share that with other people. And so as I began to share with other people, I realized that, I want to help more people. And there's a great desire in me to be able to walk alongside of other people. I do that in some personal coaching. And I just thought, it's a story of faith, and God has brought me through incredible things. And I've seen firsthand miracles that he's done in my life, in my husband Gord's life, and in our marriage. And so I wanted to be able to share those miracles and share the testament of how faithful God can be if we just hand things over to him.
Can you maybe share one of those miracles with our viewers right now?
Sure. This was probably one of the deepest hurts that I experienced. And that was into my 4th year of marriage. Gord, who I'm married to now, he wandered in our marriage, and I share a lot about that in the book, so I won't give it all away. But it was a very painful time, and as a woman who had already had one failed marriage and was mother now to a little boy, I was devastated. But it was during that time that I held on to my faith, I think, and grew in my faith more than any other time in my life. And Gordon and I now celebrate almost 33 years of marriage. So I saw what God did in our marriage and in my husband's life, and that truly was a huge miracle.
Now, as you mentioned in your book, Reason to Sing, you talk about overcoming betrayal and trauma. So, Kalita, how do you really think your journey can really help to inspire other people?
Well, I hope that people can really understand that they are not alone, that everyone has a story. And I think we've been held back from sharing because we just think that people won't understand us, or we are too immobilized by the shame and the guilt that surrounds having those wounds, having toxic relationships, coming from traumatic backgrounds. And so we don't think that we should share. We keep things to ourselves. And I think more than any time now in this world, we need to really come alongside of other people and be able to share our truth and our honesty. Because speaking from my own experience, there's nothing like being vulnerable and honest with who you really are, because then you've got nothing to hide, and you can be proud that you've survived and things that you've come through and that you're alive today and that you can be grateful and thankful. And of course, the huge thing is finding the forgiveness to let go of those, things that have kept you in a prison, and also to forgive yourself. That's been a huge, huge part of my journey. And I know that of many people, it seems like we're always the last ones to be able to forgive ourselves.
And what's that expression, let go and let God, really allows us to grow in our faith. Kalita, you write that you found joy amidst the pain. Can you really explain how you found your own reason to sing?
Well, for many years, I sang in country venues. I sang uh, to increase liquor sales, to party, to sell myself as a woman on a stage. And so I tell people, I was selling beer and partying. But once I started changing my 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 outlook, my journey, and started singing for God and singing for His glory and using the gifts that has given me, then my whole reason for that gift that He had given to me completely changed. And I have many reasons to sing, and for that gift of music that He's given me to be able to express myself in ways that perhaps I never could have. It's been the joy of my life to be able to create music and to inspire and encourage people. Music is so powerful and such a healing tool. And I'm so blessed to be able to write songs and sing stories that are other people's voices as well as my own.
Yeah, music stirs the soul. I totally agree with that. Now, Kalita, what was the most difficult part of writing this book? How were you really able to push through certain challenges to complete your memoirs?
Well, it was a challenge. It was a great challenge because, when you're writing something this personal, you have to go not only back to those stories, but you have to really climb inside of them and dig really deep to find the feelings and the emotions. So really you're experiencing a lot of things all over again. And so I would say that was probably the most difficult thing, is trying to relive them, and not just to relive them, but then in a creative way express them, um, and to turn it into a story that other people might be engaged in. So I've written a lot of songs. I've released 9, 10 albums now over the years, but I have a huge appreciation of people who write. And I'm not I don't come by this kind of writing naturally. So it was hard work. I worked with a wonderful editor who really was able to find my voice along with me, and together, we carved out the story. Hmm.
And your husband, Gord Lemon, he's also a musician. He's performed with you as well?
Yes, Gord's a great musician. He's been my producer over the years and also my songwriting partner. He's an amazing arranger, producer, and we've worked on a lot of our projects together. And it's he comes from a totally different background. He comes from like jazz and funk and R&B. I love the R&B, but I think it's been unique the way our musical tastes and talents have partnered, because it's created, I guess, a unique sound for me and my music. But it's been fun. I mean, we lock heads too. I think that's the only time we really argue is when we're in the studio, and he's hearing things different than I do. But I think any husband and wife would probably experience the same thing.
Absolutely. So, Kalida, how do you hope Reason to Sing will really impact readers, especially those who may have faced similar struggles?
Well, I hope that they will find hope, and that they will be encouraged, that they will be inspired, that they will be challenged, that they will want to face their own truth so that they can find their inner strength, so that they can be the best that they can be for their kids, for their grandchildren, to find healing and wholeness. So all of that would be that is my prayer, that people will really be able to be changed.
Singer-songwriter and fellow believer Kalida Haviland, thanks so much for joining us today from Oakville, Ontario, and all the best and God's blessings with you and your new book, Reason to Sing.
Thank you, Hal.
Often we hear people talking about looking forward to the retirement years and enjoying the free time available as a senior. However, as we age, there are often many challenges that come with that, including health and mobility. So whose job is it to come alongside our seniors and lend a helping hand? Joining us today to discuss this is Tim Syme. He is the seniors pastor at the Evangelical Free Church in Lethbridge. Good to have you with us, Pastor Tim.
Thank you. Glad to be doing that.
Well, welcome back to Bridge City News, and you work with seniors regularly. So what are some of the top concerns you hear from seniors? I'm guessing that loneliness would be up there.
It sure is, but the reality is, from my perspective, trying to get seniors to identify what's the cause of the loneliness, because they're going through huge transitions in their lives, and many of those things, the loss of mobility, health limitations. The big one for men is you take your driver's license away when you've been driving for 60 or 70 years. It's a shocking thing for people. So it's what is causing the loneliness, loss of a spouse, all of those things can push us to that. But I think they have to identify that in order to move ahead.
So what makes them lose their driver's license? Is it just the mobility issues?
Oh, just your ability to think fast enough is usually what comes to the seniors on that. They can't discern quick enough how quickly traffic's moving or those things. And a couple of scary incidents are what usually lead to the family finally saying, "Dad, you really have to take this step." And so it's a big step in that sense. My grandmother, as she aged, and she wanted to know who had invented the term golden years, because she wanted it identified and held accountable, because she didn't find those years as golden as she had been promised. And I understood that a little bit at the time, but even more now.
Now, hopefully we have relatives and friends who will take the time to visit, but for some individuals, family members may not be nearby. I think it's a great opportunity for younger people, including teens, to visit seniors, even complete strangers. Your thoughts on that, Tim?
Oh, absolutely. Family's the number one source. If they're not available, we prioritize our seniors on that basis. And our youth pastor came to us 2 or 3 years ago and said she would like the seniors to meet with the youth, high school. And we thought, well, sure, we have never done that. Let's do that. So we organized. The seniors brought all the desserts. So the youth came and ate all the desserts. But we sat around round tables and there were questions there about seniors telling stories about their first trip or where they lived or different things in their life. And the young people could share questions and thoughts and ideas. We've done that twice and it's already on the schedule for the third year because it was really well accepted by both of those generations. It was a good idea. And what it leads to saying hi when you're in a bigger group, if you see somebody that you've talked to, you can at least take 2 minutes to, how's your school going or how's that taking place? So it's been a good thing.
And talking about young people still, it's always great when young people make time to help seniors figure out their tech stuff like computers and cell phones. The interesting thing seems to be when this happens, there's often an exchange of sorts with seniors having the opportunity to share some stories and wisdom with the younger generation.
Yes, yes. My wife and I we're in that generation. So whenever the grandkids come over, here's the problems we're facing with the computer and the phone, and we can interact over that issue. But the seniors at large find that to be and we have some really techie young people who said, if somebody's locked up with something and they don't have grandchildren or somebody around, let us know. And that's a great resource. We have used them at least 2 or 3 times where we've sent them to visit with somebody and help them to take care of an issue. And that's a real bridge builder.
And when people feel lonely and isolated, this can make it easy to fall into the self-pity trap. Any advice for seniors on how to keep a positive outlook on life?
Well, I think your use of the word of the trap is absolutely essential to understand that. It's like a warning flag being waved. And when we talk to seniors or I interact with them, I try to, again, help them to identify that as something which is wrong and get to the source of it. Because it's like when your smoke alarm goes off in your house, you should get up and go check. Is that a fire or is that just your toast that you forgot about on the counter? But when a warning flag comes, you should want to know what's happening. And so we try to then lead our seniors into, is there something taking place that's new or different? And leading you to kind of like feeling overwhelmed, because that's really what self-pity is.
And do you ever see seniors take the extra free time that they now have to reach out to a child or teen who may be struggling and mentor that young person? Maybe they need help with school assignments, or maybe they just have some behavioral issues that they may need help with.
Yes, one of the things I've discovered about seniors, at least those that I'm connected with, is that they still love to serve and help in a way that they can. There's some things they can't do anymore, but they can step in. We have some seniors that are doing tutoring, and we have others that are just available to, offer those words of encouragement at that level. But they love to serve. Most of our ministries, and I keep a running track of that, have seniors involved in the volunteerism because they bring a wealth of experience. As long as you don't live in 1972, you're trying to live in 2020s. You can have something to say, and you can play a role, and that's a valuable thing. And when you're actually doing something that serves into your own spiritual and emotional health in that sense.
And do you observe seniors struggling with their identity and purpose in life now that they're no longer working? I remember my time working at McDonald's, there was seniors that were working the breakfast shift, and it gave them like a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning. Same with like when you see the greeters at Walmart. Can we wrestle with feelings of not having value that when we feel no longer needed?
Yes, I think that's one of the greatest things seniors have to be prepared for, because if you lose your sense of purpose, it just creates a lot of other things that come along. Years ago, I read a book. I think Bob Buford wrote the book, The Second Half of Life. And he kind of took, okay, you've lived to this point. Now you're going to go into the second half of your life. It's kind of business oriented, that what's going to be your next career after you've successfully done something for years. But I've applied those principles to seniors as they approach that. What's going to be your plan for retirement? Because retirement and doing nothing is really a dangerous place to be. But we have all kinds of connections with all of our community, food banks and everything that's taking place here, thrift shops, the MCC, and our seniors just flood those places with service, volunteering, and they get the benefit of being out and doing that.
I remember my pastor telling the seniors in the congregation, you don't retire, you refire.
Yeah.
And for those in long-term care facilities, do you think churches should consider setting up teams to either take turns phoning or even connecting via Zoom to make sure seniors get some visits?
Yes, we have teams that are assigned individually to people in senior homes. And again, we prioritize that on the availability of family and friends. But as people start to look like they're getting isolated with family because they're not here, and unfortunately, some families just don't step up. But we watch that, and if somebody's sliding into that category, they're assigned a visitor who sees them every week or 2 weeks, and they visit and feed information back as to how we can be helping more specifically. And those visitors, we have people that drive people to appointments, bring them groceries. They just phone the office. We have people that are signed up for doing a little task like that. And it makes a big difference when we can supply a practical need, and those become very, very essential.
And we were talking about driving a little bit earlier in our interview, and you just touched on it in your last answer there. But the sad reality is that for some seniors, driving is no longer an option for them. So, yeah, a great opportunity to offer to get groceries for them or drive them and accompany them to the store.
Sure, yeah, and that's a very practical step, and people are willing to do that. In fact, it's other seniors who really step up. They have a lot of peer care for each other. And those that are driving and they still have great mobility and they can do all those things, we match them up so that they can have somebody they can call, and these people are really glad to help. It's just a matter of getting the information, and it's easy to hold on to that and not want to bother somebody in a way, but we just keep pressing. Nope, we're here. You have to let us know. We want to help you. We are blessed by doing that.
And other areas we could perhaps help seniors with is maybe like some small home repairs, cleaning, mowing lawns, shoveling snow, or maybe even changing a tire, for example. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, oh yes, that just falls into that practical category. Again, that if there's things, and we have a group of men who just work on cars, and uh, so we've encouraged our seniors, if you need advice even about whether something's needed, or they can do something for you. If they can't, they can tell you, yeah, you do need that, and this is what it would look like, just so you feel more confident if you go to a shop and you feel like maybe you're going to be taken advantage of. You know exactly what you're looking for, and exactly what you need to have. And so those things make quite the difference in that.
And there could be some reciprocity here too, because seniors can also give advice on home repairs or home maintenance, or like teach a young person how to change a tire.
Oh, absolutely. I've retired twice, and here I am sitting in my office still part-time doing ministry, which I love because it fulfills my purpose, as I do that. And I look at retiring as just retiring from a position and then looking for what else God has as next. And I had no intention that this would be what I'd be doing right now, but it's a perfect fit, and I'm having a great time and being blessed by the seniors, because they go through some deep, deep waters. And when I'm there with them and I see their faith working so strongly, it gives me courage for the future, as I will face other issues that will come along. Their faith comes through at the end. They finish well.
And it's always great when you go into stores like Home Depot or Rona and you see a senior working there and they just have a wealth of knowledge and advice for you. And If I'm looking for a certain parts, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about, even if I don't know the proper term for it.
No, that's so true. And that wealth of experience, I think, is being recognized on a wider scope, like you say, in these various places, retail places and such, because that experience and that knowledge is invaluable to places like that. And if you're not serving or finding a place to work a little bit part-time then you're really not looking, because there's all kinds of opportunities out there, either voluntarily or working for somebody, because you've got a skill that is valuable to them in their company.
And from your observations, what are some things that seem to make seniors thrive? And what are some things that we do or don't do that seem to cause seniors to struggle?
I think the biggest struggle is coming to a place of being labeled, or thinking, you're kind of past everything. You have nothing more to offer. If they start to feel that, I think that's the greatest struggle that seniors can face, when they begin to feel like, why am I here anymore? From that perspective, I used to do all these things. My wife's mother was in a dementia care center for a number of years. And one of the things I loved about that particular center was they had a huge plaque on the front of every door, pictures of that patient, that client. When they were younger, it gave information what they did with their work career, their education, pictures of their family. So you walked in there, it wasn't just a senior who was really unable to kind of even communicate properly. It was a human who had lived a very productive life. They had been a professor at some incredible school somewhere. Now they're in a stage where they could just be labeled as an old person taking up space. But I really appreciated what they did with that.
Tim Syme is the seniors pastor at the Evangelical Free Church in Lethbridge. Good to have you with us again, Pastor Tim.
You bet. Glad to help.
I'm Naveen Day. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.